Hello, this is Libera from Yoyo Properties Real Estate in Zihuatanejo, and in this video I will go through the process of buying a property, a house, a condo, or a piece of land. The first step is finding the right property for you. We will go through what is available in the market when you start the search, and we will do our best to find the properties that fit your needs the best and that check all of the boxes. After we found the one, we make an offer. Ideally, this would be for the asking price, but if you make an offer for a lower price, we will do our best to get you a great deal. Once the offer has been accepted, we go ahead and start drafting the buy-sell agreement. There, we will put all of the conditions of the sale, and once it is approved by both parties, we will ask for both of you to sign it and send it either through DHL Express, or if you're in town, we can sign it in person. Once it is signed, you can go ahead and make the down payment, which is usually about 30% of the total cost. Later, we start creating the trust. This process is done in a notary. We will request further information from both the buyer and the seller for the notary, and with it, the notary will be able to give us an estimated closing date and cost. You, as a buyer, choose which notary to work with. Once we have a closing date, you make the final payment a couple of days before the closing. Usually your bank, if you're in the US or Canada, they will ask for you to do it in person to make the wire transfer. So what most buyers do is that they go to the bank a couple of days before the closing date, then they get on a plane, fly down to Sigua, and sign their trust. And that's the final payment. After that, you arrive to Zihuatanejo on the closing date, you sign your new deed, and the house is yours. In that moment, you get the keys, you're able to use the house, and you get a simple copy of your trust or deed. 3 months later, you will get the now official trust with your public registry number attached to it. A common question that we get from clients is, how is the Zihuatanejo real estate market? Homes usually stay on the market for about 6 months to 1 year, but you can't always trust that the property that you like will be available. If it is in a great location or if it's priced really well, they can go quickly. In certain developments, there are waiting lists. Some properties are harder to get than others. This isn't a crazy market. We don't have bidding wars. We don't have multiple offers at a time. We are a slow-paced community, and so is our market. The value of the properties are always going up, steady and consistently up. There are no price drops. The international economics and finance state of the world doesn't affect much the value of the properties in Zihuatanejo. You won't get huge increases either. It's steady and up. Do I need a real estate agent? You don't need one. It is not mandatory, but it is important, and you're benefited as a buyer if you have one. Whenever you're working with an agency and the agency has both the listing and the buyer, the agency works for the buyer. In a case where you have your realtor that you trust and that you're working with, and then you find a property you want to buy that is listed on another website or another real estate agency, then the other real estate agency becomes the listing agent, and your agent becomes the buyer's agent. I hope this isn't too confusing. The thing here in Zihuatanejo is that we don't have an MLS. You can always stick to one agent and browse everything that is on the market, and this makes it very easy for you. You are only dealing with one person instead of contacting multiple agents and multiple agencies. Your agent will set up showings for their own listings or with other agencies. We all work together and we all know each other. We're happy to work together. Your agent will help you writing offers, negotiating, and give you guidance throughout the whole process. So up to the moment where you get your final deed, you can count on the agent to help you with anything that might come up. And the best thing about getting a real estate agent is that it is free of charge. The seller is the one that pays the commission. So this is a difference between the States and Mexico. Sometimes you will pay your agent a fee. Here in Mexico, the fees are covered by the sellers fully. So why not get an agent? You get all of this for free. The timeline. You are anxious and you want to use the property right away. You're excited. So what is the timeline of the purchase? You first find the property. The process of making an offer, getting a counter, and going back and forth usually takes between 2 to 6 days. If you want to make this process easier, you offer the asking price and then you're good to go. Once the offer has been accepted, we go through the buy-sell agreement, and this takes between 1 to 3 weeks. We have to draft it, then it goes to you, the buyer. Once it's approved, it goes to the seller, and if there are changes, we go back and forth until both parties are happy. Then we can sign. The trust, setting it up and waiting for the notary to do their job, takes about 1.5 to 2.5 months. It can be 1 month if you get a deed instead of a trust. And once the date arrives and you sign your new trust or deed, then the house is yours. You just wait for the public registry number, and that's it. The house is officially yours. You might wonder, do I have to be a temporary resident, a permanent resident, or a citizen to buy? And the answer is no. You can be just a tourist and buy a property here in Zihuatanejo. There are no requirements for your citizenship. When you are Mexican, you will save on the closing cost because you're not getting a trust. You would get a deed, which is a bit quicker and less expensive. If I'm a foreigner, what can I do? You, as a foreigner, can buy either through a trust or through a Mexican corporation. And the main differences are that the trust has a fee, and it's about 500 US per year. It has a time frame. It expires in 50 years. But then what happens? You're not losing the property, and your kids are not losing the property. After those 50 years pass, the only thing that has to happen is that you have to renew the trust, and that involves a cost, and you only do this every 50 years, so no worries. A trust makes the inheritance process easier, for sure. You can just add a beneficiary, and with a death certificate, the trust automatically goes to the beneficiary. This means that it's a low maintenance alternative when you're buying a property. Now, for a Mexican corporation, although it's not as commonly used as a trust, it has its benefits. For instance, you have now created a person. This means that you can do your own taxes and you can run a business. So basically, if you want to rent the property and also be able to write off, deduct your expenses, then the Mexican corporation is the way to go. You do have to do your filing of taxes. You need to hire an accountant, and this means that it's a little bit of a high maintenance alternative. You file taxes every month and every year. It is a very flexible scheme to buy properties. You can even have multiple properties under that same company, but you do have to hire an accountant, which can be more expensive than the fees from just holding a trust. Do I need a lawyer to buy properties in Mexico? The answer is no. Is it advised? Yes, it depends on the situation, the specific situation. Some properties are trickier than others to buy. And if you're not working with an agent, hiring a lawyer is absolutely necessary because you have nobody representing you. If you are doing this on your own, you at least need someone to go through the private buy-sell agreement to look after your interests and make sure everything is looking good and legal. If you're working with a real estate company, you can just use their own agreements, and you can trust that they are working in your best interest. They're working for you as a buyer. Now, an escrow account. This is something that is used regularly if you're in the States or in Canada. Here in Mexico, banks don't have that figure of an escrow account. A regular bank will not offer that service, but there are specialized companies that do escrow accounts. They can be used, but it's not common. If you have a property that is currently being sold by a foreigner, a US or Canada seller, then they will understand if you want to use one. If we're dealing with a Mexican seller, they might have not heard of the escrow account. We will use one if you want to. The closing costs go from 6 to 8%. If you are Mexican, it's going to be less. But if you're a foreigner, this is about what it's averaging at the moment. Here on the right, we have an example of a quote of a closing cost. Main big things that you will pay for are property acquisition tax, then the tax appraisal, then there's a foreign relations permit, and finally the fee charged by the notary is another big part of the closing cost, along with the taxes for it. The item that will impact the most your closing cost is definitely going to be the ISA BI tax, which is a property acquisition tax. Now, what about a mortgage? Can you get a mortgage here in Mexico? We do not advise it. We have higher interest rates than in the States. 99% of our purchases and sales are done in cash. For instance, if in the States a mortgage is a 3% interest rate, in Mexico it will be 15. It is that much more expensive. Now, an earnest money deposit, that is not usually required. We trust that any offer that you make is serious. And now, a home inspection, these are not required to purchase a property in Mexico. You can do it, although this isn't too common. Maybe 1 out of 10 purchases will be done with an inspection, but we're happy to do one if you want to. The final part is, once you have purchased the home, what will be your expenses? So if you are buying in a condominium, you will be paying for HOA fees. These we call maintenance fees or HOA fees, and these cover the common areas, the shared areas of a development. It can be pools, gardens, the administration's office, a lobby, and any shared area like a tennis court, and all of the exterior of the property. The interior is taken care by the owner. Then there's a property tax. It depends on the size and location of the property you're buying, but they're usually between 500 to 1,000 US dollars per year. So taxes are quite low here in Mexico, which is a really great news. Then you pay the fiduciary or the bank for holding your trust, and this is about 500 US dollars per year. The electricity can be very variable. It depends on usage. If you don't use the air conditioning, you will pay less than 1,000 Mexican pesos per month. But if you do use the air conditioning lightly, you might be paying from 1,000 to 2,000 Mexican pesos per month. If you have a really large home, or maybe you have guests that are not taking care of the air conditioning usage and are leaving doors open and windows open, then your monthly bill will be much higher. But there are ways around this, like getting solar panels. Then the phone and internet service is going to be around 500 to 900 pesos per month, depending on the package that you get and the speed that you're getting. And propane, it's roughly 4,000 Mexican pesos annually. If you cook a lot, if you bake a lot, then it might be a bit higher. If you don't cook, it can be much, much lower. And the water is going to be about the same. So both expenses are quite cheap. And that is all. Happy property shopping. I would love to be a part of your journey. Bye-bye.